The wind howled through the valley as dawn broke over the silver mountains, casting long shadows across the kingdom of Velendor. Once radiant with laughter and song, the air now carried a chill of sorrow. In the heart of the land stood the Crystal Castle, a magnificent fortress carved from shimmering quartz. Its spires pierced the clouds, refracting sunlight into cascades of color that once danced across the land. But this morning, the colors were dull. Inside the tallest tower, Queen Alina stood silently by a broken mirror, her face pale, her hands trembling. Her only daughter, Princess Leora, had vanished without a trace during the sacred moonwatch. She was the light of this realm, Queen Alina whispered. And now the darkness has begun. The royal guards searched the land tirelessly, but not even a footprint remained. The high priest murmured that fate had shifted. Hope waned. And from the eastern skies dark clouds crept forward, slowly swallowing the golden light that once bathed Velendor in peace. In the castle library, hidden beneath the grand archives, an old scribe whispered tales to himself, stories once told to children as warnings. When the moon bleeds and the sun weeps, he muttered, the child of light shall vanish into fog. His quill stopped. That verse wasn't in any written tome. He felt a chill in his bones. A cold flame flickered above the old chandelier. Scrolls and texts lay scattered, as if by an unseen hand. Something ancient had awakened. A presence walked the corridors of memory, felt but unseen. Somewhere between parchment and silence, the truth had begun to stir. Princess Leora had not just disappeared. She had been taken, claimed by something older than prophecy. The scribe closed his eyes. She is the key, or the end, he breathed. And then the flame extinguished. Far below the castle, beyond dungeons sealed for centuries, a faint hum echoed through ancient catacombs. Cracks glowed faintly with golden light, pulsing like a heartbeat. No one had entered this place in generations, but now doors groaned. Chains rattled softly. In the center of a circular chamber, a crystal altar throbbed with light, shifting from rose to violet. An old sigil, forgotten in time, reappeared on the stone floor. Outside, a crow cawed violently as lightning split the sky. Deep magic, older than Velendor itself, was awakening. And from within the crystal altar, a whisper resonated. She walks the path unseen. The silence that followed felt heavier than any thunder. On a wind-swept hill outside the capital, an old monk lit incense beneath a banyan tree. His eyes were closed, yet he trembled. The balance is broken, he murmured. From the earth, roots twisted unnaturally, exposed like veins beneath skin. A gust nearly snuffed his flame. He opened a scroll sealed for 1,000 years. The ink bled into strange symbols. Nature groaned. A soul has crossed the veil, he said. And the price will be heavy. Leaves danced frantically around him as the sky cracked. The monk bowed low. He felt the princess's soul stir far from this world, wandering a realm not meant for the living. Only the crystal knows the way, he whispered. In a dream that was not hers, Princess Leora stood within a field of mirrors stretching endlessly. Each reflection showed a version of herself, some older, some crying, some fading to dust. She reached toward one, and it shattered. Her voice echoed from all directions. Am I lost or becoming? The sky overhead churned like water disturbed. A faceless figure stood at the center of the field, its hands outstretched. Truth costs, it said. Will you pay with memory or with soul? Leora wanted to scream but found only silence. She turned, and every reflection turned away from her. Then, a single crystal shard floated toward her chest. As it touched her heart, everything turned white. Within the dream world, Leora found herself in a shadowed corridor, lit by soft pulses of blue light. The air was thick with memories not her own. Along the walls, moments from her life flickered, her laughter echoing in gardens, her father teaching her swordplay, her mother's lullabies. But now the images twisted, distorted by sorrow. The garden wilted. Her father's sword clattered to the floor. Her mother turned to mist. Lyora ran, trying to hold on to the images, but the faster she moved, the more they faded. "Is this punishment?" she asked aloud. From the shadows, a child's voice replied, "This is the price of forgetting who you are." She turned and saw a girl, her exact age and face, watching from the darkness, eyes filled with fear and longing. "I didn't choose to forget," Lyora said, breathless. The girl responded, "No, but you chose to look away." Back in the waking world, Queen Alina sat alone in the royal chamber, clutching Lyora's childhood blanket. She traced the edges, stitched with golden stars and moons. The silence in the castle was deafening. Courtiers spoke in hushed tones, afraid of the queen's growing stillness. "They all think I've lost her," Alina said to the empty room. "But I feel her breath in the wind, her footsteps in my dreams." Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She rose, approached the balcony, and looked toward the eastern mountains. "I don't need signs. I don't need proof. I need her," she whispered. From behind, the royal steward entered quietly, setting down a sealed scroll. "It arrived by raven, no origin," he said. Alina opened it. Inside were 4 words, written in ancient Valandic script. "The child walks between." Her breath caught in her throat. Inside the Temple of Whispers, hidden deep beneath Velendor's sacred grove, the high priest meditated in a circle of flame. Visions flickered behind his closed eyes, glimpses of Lyora wandering through realms unknown, surrounded by ancient symbols of protection and danger. "She has entered the stream of echoes," he murmured, "where memory becomes weapon and truth becomes shadow." The flames dimmed. Behind him, the oracle approached, an old blind woman draped in emerald silk. "Her soul is split," she said, her voice brittle. "Half bound to time, half bound to the void." The priest nodded. "And the longer she walks there, the harder it becomes to bring her back whole." The oracle's fingers brushed the air, forming glowing sigils. "Then we must guide her, not with command, but with memory." Their eyes turned to a glowing crystal, suspended in mid-air, pulsating in sync with a distant heartbeat. In the village of Marin's Hollow, where Lyora had once played in secret, a little girl stood by the edge of a pond, staring into the still water. Her name was Thera, no more than 7 years old, but her eyes had seen strange dreams. "She talked to me," Thera whispered to her older brother. "In the moonlight, she said she's not gone, just stuck." The boy laughed nervously. "Dreams don't talk, Thera." But she only stared harder at the pond. "She gave me this." In her palm lay a shard of clear crystal, cold to the touch and glowing faintly. The boy's smile faded. Behind them, an elder watched silently from a wooden porch, clutching a prayer charm. "The veil is thinning," he muttered to no one. "When children see across the river of soul, it means time has begun to bend." In the heart of the dream, Lyora arrived at a massive stone gate floating in nothingness. There was no ground beneath her feet, only a mirrored void stretching endlessly. The gate was covered in carvings of every life she had ever touched: her nursemaid, her horse, a merchant she once saved from falling. Her fingers brushed the symbols, and with each touch, memories flashed behind her eyes. A voice echoed, "To return you must remember. To remember, you must feel." Lyora's heart pounded. "But what if I'm afraid?" she asked. The gate answered with silence. Suddenly, her body was pulled backward by windless force, and behind her shadows rose, made from regrets, guilt, and pain. She faced them trembling, and the gate slowly creaked open with a low, mournful sound. Lyora stepped through the stone gate into a world not bound by time. The landscape shimmered like glass, reflections of places she loved and feared, all bleeding into each other. A golden meadow transformed into a burning battlefield, then into her childhood bedroom. She stood amidst it all, disoriented. "This place obeys your longing," a voice said. From behind a twisting willow, a tall woman emerged, her face kind, her eyes ancient. "Who are you?" Lyora asked. The woman smiled. I am comfort, or chaos. You decide. Around them, visions began to take form, her father alive and smiling, her mother embracing her, the castle restored. Lyora's eyes welled up. It's all so perfect. The woman reached for her hand. Then stay. There is no pain here, only peace. But deep within her, something pulled back. A whisper reminding her, peace without truth is a gilded cage. The woman guided Lyora to a place she called the Echo Hall, an endless corridor of mirrored doors. Each leads to a world shaped by your desire, she said. Enter one, and you may never need to leave. Lyora walked past the doors, each displaying visions. One showed her crowned queen, another reunited with her lost pet, and one where time had frozen her as a carefree child forever. Her heart ached. Why are you showing me this, she asked. Because your soul craves comfort and comfort fears change, the woman replied. You can choose any of these lives and remain. Lyora paused before the door, showing her family whole and smiling. Her hand reached toward it. Then she noticed something. Their smiles were still, their eyes empty. The joy was flawless, too flawless. She withdrew. This isn't real, she whispered. It's a trap dressed as a gift. Suddenly the woman's expression darkened. You doubt the gift, then face the consequence. The echoing corridor vanished, replaced by a tempest of voices and shadows. Lyora found herself suspended in mid-air, surrounded by giant, floating masks, each with her face but twisted in different emotions. Envy, pride, rage, fear. You rejected peace, the woman's voice thundered. Now see what lies beneath. The masks turned toward her, eyes glowing. One hissed, you wanted to be special. Another laughed, you thought you were pure. They circled her like vultures, closing in. Lyora screamed, covering her ears, but the voices came from within. You are not your fears, a tiny voice whispered from her chest. You are the choice you make now. She opened her eyes and pushed back, shattering the masks with sheer will. The illusion fell like shards of broken glass, revealing silence. Lyora landed in a circular chamber of glass and water. Beneath her feet, ripples formed as she stepped forward. A luminous figure emerged from the pool, a version of herself, older, calm, and serene. You survived the lie, the reflection said. Now look within. Lyora knelt, staring into the pool. Images swirled, her guilt at leaving the castle grounds that night, the fear she couldn't admit, the pressure to be someone perfect. I didn't mean to run, she whispered. I just wanted to breathe. Her older self nodded. And now you understand. Freedom without self-awareness is just another illusion. The pool's waters turned still, reflecting both versions of her in perfect harmony. When you accept all of you, her reflection said, you walk as one. Lyora reached forward, and the reflection embraced her. Light burst around them, gentle, not blinding. The dreamscape dissolved, leaving Lyora alone in a quiet grove under starlight. The grass beneath her feet was real now, the breeze tender. A white lotus bloomed at the grove's center. She approached it slowly, and as her fingers touched its petals, memories returned. Not just of joy and love, but of sorrow, pain, and failure. And she welcomed them all. The lotus shimmered and opened, revealing a single phrase written in glowing threads. To awaken is not to escape, but to embrace. Lyora inhaled deeply. The world no longer felt distant or surreal. She wasn't whole, but she was aware. And that was enough. A soft voice echoed, you've stepped beyond illusion, now step forward. The grove faded, and a golden bridge appeared, stretching toward a rising dawn. The golden bridge led Lyora to a realm of frozen light, a place where time stood still and every breath echoed through eternity. She walked carefully across the transparent surface, stars flickering beneath her feet. At the bridge's end stood a towering archway carved from obsidian and pearl. Beyond it, she sensed a truth too great to name. As she passed through, a blinding light flared, then faded. She found herself in a circular chamber filled with suspended crystals, each one humming with energy. One hovered closer and pulsed with warmth. Inside, she saw herself as a baby cradled in her mother's arms. Another crystal showed her alone, watching raindrops race down glass. She realized these were fragments of her soul, scattered by grief and silence. "To know your whole self," whispered a voice that sounded like her own, "you must see it all, without turning away." Lyora reached out to one of the crystals, trembling. As her hand touched it, a memory engulfed her. The night she fled the castle during the sacred moon watch. She remembered the suffocating expectations, the pressure to smile, to be perfect. In the memory, she had run toward the forest, sobbing under the stars. "Why didn't anyone see me?" her past self cried. Watching it unfold, Lyora whispered, "I see you now." The memory faded, and the crystal dissolved into light. One by one she touched others, each painful, raw, illuminating. She saw moments she had buried, shouting at her friend in anger, refusing to help a servant, breaking a promise. These were her shadows. But in facing them, she felt strangely lighter. "The truth burns," said the voice again, "but it also frees." And for the first time, Lyora didn't look away. The chamber began to shift as the final crystal rose, larger than the rest, filled with a storm of swirling mist. "This is the truth beneath all truths," the voice said. Lyora stepped forward, drawn to it. Inside, she saw not a memory, but a possibility, herself as a ruler driven by fear, a girl who gave in to anger, a queen who silenced her people. These were not things that happened, but things that could have. "Am I this too?" she asked. The voice replied, "You are all your choices. What you feed grows." The mist swirled faster. Lyora placed her hands on the crystal, trembling. "Then I choose peace." The storm stilled. The crystal cracked, and from its core, light poured out, enveloping her in warmth. She collapsed to her knees, tears of clarity on her cheeks. "I see now," she said. "It was never about being perfect. It was about being honest." Light faded. Lyora now stood alone before a mirror, ancient, tall, and smooth as still water. This was the final test. In it she saw herself, and every part she had denied. The spoiled child, the scared girl, the angry voice, the lonely heart. All of them stared back. She reached out, and her reflection did the same, not in mimicry but in shared recognition. "You are me," she whispered. "And I am you." The mirror shimmered. Her image smiled, not with perfection, but with peace. Cracks formed in the glass, not from pain, but release. "There is no enemy within," she said. "Only forgotten voices." The mirror burst into light, dissolving into golden dust that swirled around her. With that, the chamber collapsed into starlight. She was falling, but she was not afraid. She was ready to return. The descent was gentle, like drifting through clouds. Lyora opened her eyes to find herself lying in the sacred grove, where the lotus once bloomed. Morning had arrived. Birds chirped. Dew shimmered on petals. She sat up slowly, her hand resting over her heart where the crystal had once touched. Everything felt the same, and yet entirely new. She stood and looked toward the castle in the far distance. "I'm not who I was," she said aloud, "but I know who I am now." A soft breeze answered her. She smiled. Far above, the sky was clear, and for the first time, it didn't feel so far away. She walked toward the rising sun, no longer running, no longer hiding. Behind her, the grove glowed faintly, like a memory honored, not escaped. The path ahead was uncertain, but her heart was finally still. The path home was not straight. As Lyora walked, the world began to shift again, not into illusion, but into silence. The trees hushed. Even her footsteps made no sound. She stood in a barren field where the wind didn't blow, and the sky remained still. In the center stood a black stone throne, empty yet commanding. "This is the throne of the self," a voice echoed. Here, desire rules, or dissolves. She approached, drawn by something deeper than curiosity. Around her, the air thickened with memory, visions of power, admiration, applause. A version of herself appeared on the throne, regal, adored, and cruel. You could have it all, the image said. Rule through beauty, wisdom, and fear. Lyora closed her eyes. Not at that price. The throne trembled. She turned her back to it and sat on the earth instead. That choice sent a ripple through the stillness. The ground cracked beneath her as the illusion shattered. The sky split, revealing a great void swirling above. Lyora was lifted into darkness where voices whispered, not lies or dreams, but truths she had tried to bury. You have failed, one said. You were never enough, said another. She trembled, suspended in space, the weight of self-doubt pressing inward. Shadows gathered around her, forming chains. Why do you keep fighting? The void asked. Because I must, she replied. Because I love, and I fear, and I fall. But I rise too. The chains cracked. From within, a soft light emerged, not grand, but real. Her breath steadied. Even broken, I belong to the light, she whispered. The shadows recoiled. Her form brightened. She wasn't escaping darkness. She was accepting its place in her. The void shrank, unable to swallow what had embraced itself. She landed softly in a realm of ash and memory. All around her stood statues, carved from smoke and sorrow, each one a person she had harmed, ignored or forgotten. The statues wept silently, yet none accused her. Lyora approached the nearest figure, a servant girl she had once shouted at unfairly. I was cruel to you, she said. The statue crumbled gently into dust, leaving behind a tiny glowing flower. She moved from one to the next, confessing, remembering, forgiving. And with each act, more statues fell, and more flowers grew. The ground became a field of soft light. Her knees buckled, not from grief, but from the release. This is how we heal, she whispered. By remembering the ones we tried to forget. The last statue, of herself, stood silent. She walked to it and whispered, even you. It too dissolved into petals. Night fell. Lyora stood at the edge of a still lake. No stars above. No reflection below. Only silence. Across the water, a single boat waited, empty, unmoving. She knew what it meant. To cross was to let go completely. But what if I forget who I am? She whispered. A voice from within answered, what you truly are cannot be forgotten. She stepped into the boat, and it began to glide forward, not by oar or wind, but by surrender. The lake reflected her thoughts, faces of those she loved, mistakes she mourned, joys she feared losing. She let them come. Let them go. Midway the lake turned to light, and the boat dissolved. She stood on the water, not above it, not separate, but part of it. I release, she said. The lake rippled. So did she. She emerged from the water reborn, not as royalty, not as savior, but as herself. The world around her pulsed with gentle life. Trees blossomed. Wind returned. Time began again. Her gown now shimmered with threads of silver and blue, echoing sky and earth. In her hand rested a single lotus, pulsing faintly with all she had endured. She felt no need to speak, no urge to explain. Her heart was silent, but full. As she stepped onto dry land, the earth welcomed her. The path ahead was not clear, but she no longer needed it to be. What comes, she thought, will come as it must. I will meet it whole. Behind her the lake shone under the stars, finally visible again. And above her the moon rose, not as omen, but as mirror. She smiled, bowed her head and walked forward into the soft waiting dawn. The journey home began not with footsteps, but with intention. Lyora walked through quiet woods bathed in gold, each leaf whispering her name. The world no longer felt foreign, it breathed with her. As she moved, animals emerged from hiding. a fox with silver fur, an owl of glassy feathers, a deer with sapphire eyes. None were afraid. They walked beside her as guardians, not guides. "You do not need to lead or follow," said the owl, its voice echoing inside her. "Only walk in truth." She nodded. With every step, the symbols of her old self, fear, title, shame, peeled away like mist. She did not mourn their loss. She simply let them fall. Ahead, the trees parted, revealing the road to Velendor. The crystal castle shimmered on the horizon, but it no longer felt like a destination. It was only a place. She smiled and kept walking. Word of her return spread like wildfire. At the castle gates, guards knelt. Nobles gathered. Queen Alina rushed forward, robes trailing like wings. She froze as she saw her daughter, not dressed in royal garb, but in a simple gown, barefoot, lotus in hand. "Lyora," the queen whispered. The girl smiled gently and held out the flower. "I've come home, not to rule, but to serve truth." The queen's tears fell freely. She embraced Lyora, and in that moment, time seemed to pause. No ceremony followed. No announcement. Only silence and breath shared between mother and child. Behind them, the castle walls echoed with something new, humility. "The light never left," Alina said, "it only went deeper." Lyora replied, "And I found it there." A hush fell over the court, not from awe, but from understanding. Something sacred had returned, not just a princess, but a presence. That evening, Lyora sat with the royal scribes, not on a throne but on the floor beside them. She unrolled ancient scrolls and read stories she had once ignored. "Truth isn't always loud," she said. "Sometimes it waits in silence." The scribes, surprised by her humility, listened closely. One asked, "What do we write of your journey?" She paused, then smiled. "Write only this: I left, I wept, I saw, and I returned, not changed, but revealed." Candles flickered, casting her face in warm light. She turned to the youngest scribe, a boy her age, with trembling hands. "Your voice matters too," she said. "Truth lives in many mouths." He nodded, tearful. Outside, stars shimmered. Inside, the ink began to flow, not to record legend, but to honor awakening. And so history was no longer written in power, but in presence. Lyora returned to the sacred grove one final time. The white lotus she had carried now glowed brighter, pulsing like a gentle heartbeat. She placed it back at the center of the circle. As it touched the soil, the grove shimmered with light. Trees swayed as if bowing. Flowers bloomed in unison. "You have walked through illusion," a voice echoed in the wind, "and returned with compassion." Lyora bowed her head. She did not ask for favor or reward. She simply sat in stillness, hands resting on her knees, eyes closed. Birds gathered in the branches. Light settled like dust upon her shoulders. The grove had been waiting, not for her strength, but for her surrender. As she inhaled, the grove breathed with her. As she exhaled, the wind sang. For the first time, the sacred place did not whisper wisdom. It simply mirrored her own. Night fell with grace. Lyora stood on the castle balcony, overlooking Velendor bathed in moonlight. No banners flew. No trumpets called. Just silence, stars, and wind. "There is nothing more to become," she whispered. "Only more to understand." Her fingers traced the stone rail, worn by time. She saw her people not as subjects, but as souls, each bearing pain, beauty, confusion, and courage. She no longer needed to shine. She only needed to reflect. The moon rose fully, casting her shadow gently on the wall behind her. It no longer frightened her. She smiled at it. "You too are part of me," she said. From her lips came no command, only a breath. The breath became a prayer. And the prayer became stillness. And in stillness the realm exhaled. Dawn returned like a gentle breath. Lyora walked through the castle gardens, now blooming wild and free. Flowers grew where walls had cracked, and vines danced along the marble pillars. Servants moved quietly, smiling, not out of duty but ease. Children played by the fountains again. The world had not become perfect, but it had remembered how to breathe. Lyra passed without ceremony. She sat on a low bench under a blossoming tree and simply watched. Her presence was not royal, it was grounding. A little girl ran up to her and offered a wilted daisy. "For you," she said. Lyra took it and smiled, as if it were the crown of the world. "Thank you," she replied. "It is more than enough." The girl laughed and ran away, her voice light as wind. Lyra placed the daisy beside her on the bench. Peace is not loud, she thought. It simply is. Later, Lyra walked through the old crystal archives beneath the castle, the same place where once fear had whispered through the walls. Now it hummed with light. She traced her fingers over ancient glyphs and paused at a shelf labeled "Things Forgotten." There, she placed her lotus. The petals did not wither. Instead they shimmered, joining 1,000 memories long buried. "Not all forgetting is loss," she whispered. "Sometimes it's rest." A young scholar watched from afar, eyes wide. "Why would you put something so beautiful where no one will see it?" he asked. Lyra turned to him and smiled. "Because it will wait for the one who needs it most." The boy nodded, uncertain, yet moved. And somewhere in the dark corners of the archives, a soft breeze stirred, one not from wind, but remembrance. In the temple courtyard, Lyra lit a single candle and placed it beneath the statue of the first guardian. Around her, pilgrims and villagers did the same. No sermons were spoken. No rituals repeated. Only silence, breath, and flame. One by one, people sat around her. A soldier. A weaver. A child with no name. There were no questions, no titles, just presence. And in that quiet circle, something greater than understanding emerged, belonging. Lyra closed her eyes. Her hand found the earth. The candle flickered in time with her heartbeat. She felt no need to lead, nor to retreat. "May peace come to all who sit here," she thought. "And to those who never do." As the sky dimmed and stars emerged, the courtyard glowed, not with fire, but with stillness shared. That night Lyra returned to the highest tower, the place where her mother once wept, where the mirror once shattered. The mirror had been replaced with an open window. Moonlight flooded the room. She stood there, arms open, letting the wind pass through her. Queen Alina entered quietly. No words passed between them. They stood side by side. Then Alina whispered, "You are not the same." Lyra replied, "No, and I was never meant to be." They looked out toward the world together, not as queen and heir, but as two women who had known sorrow, lost innocence, and returned bearing truth. "Is it over?" Alina asked. Lyra shook her head gently. "Nothing ends. It only deepens." In that moment, neither sought answers. They watched the stars as if they'd always known them. Not as destiny, but as mirrors. At dawn, Lyra stood alone atop a hill beyond the city walls. The sun rose slowly, golden and patient. Below, Velendor stirred, life beginning, pain continuing, joy echoing died. She did not look back. She did not need to. The wind touched her cheek like a farewell and a blessing. Her feet were bare, her eyes steady. "There is no final moment," she said softly. "Only moments we choose to honor." She turned away from the sun, not in defiance, but in trust. Her path stretched forward, undefined and honest. She took her first step into the unknown, not to escape, but to continue. And as the sky brightened, a single thought rose within her. Peace is not the absence of darkness. It is the presence of light that does not need to fight. And so she walked, still, clear, free,